time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Welcome to it on a Monday, and great to have you all with us for the next 60 minutes. We got a lot to do. Bill Bender will drop by because if it is a Monday on this show, we're talking college football and recapping the top stories of the week. It's also a Monday, which means Brian Twining hangs out with us to recap a boring race in NASCAR. I'm sorry, it just was. This race in New Hampshire just didn't do a lot for me. But we'll get into it with him. Ryan Blaney, your winner there. We'll talk about all of that. And a tribute at the end of the show to somebody that, unless you're in the sports media sort of betting circles, you may not have known, but by the time you're done with this show, you will wish you have known Dave Sharapan, and we'll get to that coming up a little later on. But we start things out. Sam Yarnell, the top storylines from Week 3 in the NFL. And for people who say, well, no, I had a bigger story. We have Tuesday leftovers. We've got plenty of NFL to talk about over the next couple of days. We get to what we can here to start the program. And Sam Yarnell, we begin things, for me, because it's something I said when Joe Burrow went down, that this team had to go out and get a quarterback. You owe it to your fan base to go out and make a move. There are two guys out there, at least two guys out there, that if you're the Bengals, you at least place phone calls to these teams to try and discern whether or not a move can be made. One of those had to be the New York Giants to see if Jameis Winston is available. The other is down in Atlanta, although they may be thinking of starting him after the
I was going to say, guy we saw yesterday
from Michael Penix, and that's Kirk Cousins. But you have to at least make those calls. When you have the talent on the offensive side of this roster, and Jake Browning is the guy you're trotting out and get your doors blown off in Minnesota against the Vikings, you have to at least consider making that phone call if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, especially after what we saw in Week 3.
Yeah, Jason, their season's over. It really is unfortunate that it has to last this short, and I know that we have many loyal Cincinnati Bengals fans watching the program, and I'm sorry for you that you have to experience this. It is truly the most unfortunate part of this beautiful sport that we love. But what makes it more unfortunate, and this is where, I had the same question yesterday when Jake Browning threw his second interception. I was like, what is this franchise doing, man? When T. Higgins' mom is tweeting, get him out of there, right? I'm thinking, what is this whole franchise doing? What are they thinking? So I reached out to someone, and I was like, are the Bengals really going to just punt on this whole season?
Can't.
Are they really going to just ride it out with Jake Browning and Brett Rippon and whoever they can find on the street? And the point that was brought to my attention is this. If this were any of if this were 27 other franchises, the answer is probably go out and get a Jameis Winston or a Kirk Cousins or somebody collecting dust on somebody else's bench. But unfortunately, this is the Cincinnati Bengals, and we've seen this franchise's tendency when it comes to spending money in the very recent past. Right now, going out and getting Kirk Cousins is almost off the board already because of the cap situation it would put them in. I mean, this is a team that doesn't have a ton of room to work with anyway, and now you're talking about going and getting the most expensive backup on the market. That's why I just don't see the Kirk Cousins thing working out. The Jameis thing is interesting because his contract's a little cheaper, but again, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. Do I trust them giving up a future draft pick, even if it's a 6th rounder, for Jameis Winston this year? No. Do I think they should? Yes. But again, I don't trust that organization to make the right decision in this context.
I agree with every single thing you said. You know what I wonder? See, you can't even make that call because Burrow's locked up under contract. You know the name I was thinking of? No, you probably are going to be surprised when I say this name. Anthony Richardson. You've got a guy in Burrow who can't stay healthy. Would you make a call to somebody like that? Would you even consider it? Probably not, because you're married to Burrow and you're looking for somebody that's a temporary fix until you get Burrow back. But Anthony Richardson's going to be available because Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future in Indianapolis with the Colts, who is another story, and we will get to the Colts tomorrow on the show. I don't want to give them short shrift. Move away from that game and talk a little bit about the Bucs and Eagles, who are both 3-0, who will meet up next week in a battle of unbeatens here in Week 4, Sam. And start with the Eagles. You had Jalen Hurts, who didn't throw a touchdown through the first 2 games of the season, first 2.5 games of the season, and then comes out like gangbusters in the second half of this game against the Rams. I still think in the playoffs the Rams can beat this Eagles team. I know they haven't figured out a way to do it yet with this group. I am still a believer in the Rams as a potential Super Bowl contender, but we have to talk about what Jalen Hurts did yesterday and why they don't let him throw the ball more. The 2 biggest games of this guy's career in 2 Super Bowls, you could have made the argument he was the MVP in both of them. He already was the MVP in one of them. He could have been the MVP of both of them, Sam. The guy clearly knows how to make plays when it matters.
Yeah, so I mean, and this may be confirmation bias, but I watched this Eagles-Rams game and thought to myself, wow, every single thing that I've said about the Eagles could not have been more correct. And I'm really sorry, Eagles fans. If you think you're sitting here watching the same team you were watching last year, you're not. This is not a team that is even in the same ballpark as the team they had last year. This is not a team that has the same level of talent at any level except for Jalen Hurts. And quite frankly, that's not a ton of talent. I'm sorry. You can disagree with me all you want, but the analytics are right there in front of you. Jalen Hurts is in a great offense, and I think he's done a great job doing something that a ton of quarterbacks are unable to do, and that's being a goldfish to an extent, right? It seems like every year he's got a new person calling plays in his ear. He's done a very good job of not letting the past affect the present. I think that's one of Jalen Hurts' best abilities. But I watched this game, and Saquon Barkley had 2.6 yards per carry. Saquon Barkley had less than 50 rushing yards on 18 carries. You cannot tell me that this is an Eagles team that shows any semblance of a threat to, the top 4 teams in the NFC.
I'll tell you why I disagree with that, because so far through the first 4 games, especially in the NFC, who is blowing you away in the NFC right now? The Packers just lost to the Browns. I mean, who's wowing you? Who is it in the NFC? You give me the Rams? You give me the Niners? I'm still not buying in on the Niners yet. I'm not buying in on the Niners yet. There's no reason the Eagles can't at least come out of the NFC. We're coming back. We got to talk about the Chiefs next. Coming up in 10 minutes, Bill Bender does a great job on college football with the sporting news. We'll get some thoughts with him after another interesting weekend. What was Arch Manning doing? Taunting a guy from Sam Houston State in the middle of a blowout. I mean, seriously. Been one of the biggest disappointments of the college football season, Arch Manning, and you're standing over guys over at Sam Houston. Give me a break. But some more NFL first. And Sam Yarnell, look, you knew the Chiefs were going to get a win. It was just a question of what it was going to look like. And if the question we're asking is what did it look like? It wasn't great, especially in the first half where they're only up 9-6. On the Giants headed to the break. You've got, Travis Kelce barking at Andy Reid, Andy Reid kind of shoving into him. I mean, it didn't look great. And then in the second half, it looked like the Chiefs came out angry and played a little bit better. But you still have the same questions about Kansas City leaving this game as you did about them coming in. And that is, where is the offense on this team going to come from if, Patrick Mahomes isn't standing on his head? You saw some flashes with the young receiver, making a couple of catches late in that game. But, it's Xavier Worthy ain't walking through that door anytime really soon. Rashee Rice is going to be back for a few more games. The good news, though, for the Chiefs is this, Sam. Everybody else in their division, not named the Chargers, is 1-2. And there's a bunch of teams in the AFC that have gotten off to sort of sluggish starts to the point that, and it goes back to something I said on the show last week, somebody's got to make the playoffs, as a wild card in the AFC, and it could still be the Chiefs ultimately.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of already arrived at the foregone conclusion that the Chiefs will be a wild card team. Interesting, certainly, based on the football and the brand of football they've played so far this season. If you watched any of their 3 games so far this season, but specifically Sunday night's game against the Giants, and your takeaway from watching 4 quarters of Chiefs football has been anything other than this team is broken, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. You might be a Chiefs fan. You might just be a closeted Chiefs fan. And that's okay. You just need to be honest with everybody about your Chiefs fandom. Now, listen, this is a team that, Jason, I think so much last year relied on we're just going to kind of let Patrick Mahomes get it done when we need to, and we'll run into a couple of lucky bounces along the way. Not that dissimilar to what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing early on in this season. But we're now on the other side of that, and it seems like they just kind of tried to rely on that continuing while all of the numbers across their entire cap table continue to inch up. And now you're at a spot where you're carrying the ball for 3.8 yards a game, which is really blown out of proportion because Nico Remigio had an 11-yard run and that was his only carry. So it's more like 3.4 yards per carry, right? Which is not necessarily up to NFL standards, right? You've got Isaiah Pacheco, who doesn't look like an NFL back anymore. This is you've got Travis Kelce bumping into Andy Reid and fighting him on the sideline. This is a Chiefs team where for the first time in the Mahomes era, you can see trouble in paradise. And that's not to say there hasn't been any before. They've just done a very effective job of keeping it under wraps due to a mixture of the coaching experience and the winning that they were doing. Well, we've gotten to a point where the brand of football that they're playing can't overtake the coaching experience. So I'm worried.
The reality is, and I said this last week, the Chargers are the class of that division. They're 3-0 now. They beat the Broncos, who I told you all were fraudulent. They're 1-2. Is Denver on the season, and Bo Nix is going backwards in his sophomore season, which, by the way, doesn't spell doom for his career. That is not what I'm saying. We have seen this sort of regression in C.J. Stroud. Some people would argue early on this season before he got hurt, even the first couple of games for Jaden Daniels. And now you're seeing it with Bo Nix in his second year in this league. And Drake May, the jury's kind of out on what all of that is. But here's the reality, Sam, and I was sitting here looking at this while you were giving your synopsis on the Chiefs there. New England's 1-2. You got 2 0-3 teams elsewhere in the AFC East. Baltimore's 1-1. They play tonight. Pittsburgh's 2-1. Cleveland's 1-2. Houston and Tennessee are winless. Jacksonville's 2-1. Vegas, Denver, KC 1-2. Again, somebody's got to make the playoffs, and I would not want to play the Chiefs regardless. Remember, this is a team that made it to the Super Bowl as a road team throughout the playoffs in Kansas City. So they're not intimidated or scared by having to play on the road. This veteran group of players is not scared of having to go and play on the road. I mean, are you telling me you're 100% sure Jacksonville or Pittsburgh or any of these other teams that you might want to throw into the mix are going to be the Bengals, who are 2-1 leading the division, but we all know that's not going to last given their state of affairs? I still think Kansas City gets in, and if they are, they're always going to be a dangerous team because of number 15. That's just the reality of it. Again, I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, but at 1-2, at least getting that first win last night puts them in a position that I think now they could start to find their path, find their footing, figure out, start strategizing. All right, where's this going to have to work in terms of just figuring out a way to pile up enough wins between now and week 18 to get into the postseason and then try to make some noise there. They're not winning the division, though. This is the Chargers' division to win.
But that's the thing. You said it there at the end, man. Piling up enough wins. Look at this schedule. They're not in a place to pile up wins anymore, right? You're staring down the barrel of Ravens, Jaguars, Lions, Raiders, right? So that's 2 out of 4 bad ones. Commanders, Bills, Broncos, Colts. That's going to be a tough 4-week stretch because you're in Denver for that game. Then Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. I understand that they're a team that has to.
Defense is still going to keep them in games.
Start winning games.
But defense is going to keep them in games, Sam.
It'll keep them in games, but I don't know. Just like it did last year, no contest there. Here's the thing. I don't know if the offense can win them those games that the defense keeps them in like it did last year.
Yeah, they won a lot of crazy games last year. Their record in close games was off the charts, and we all know what happens year over year in those situations. Teams that win those close games one year could easily lose them the following year. So it wouldn't shock me if that was the case. I have to concede that. By the way, and we'll spend more time on this tomorrow, I said watch Jacksonville before the season started. Flying under the radar, but finding ways to win games. And Trevor Lawrence has played well for them over the first few games. We're coming back with Bill Bender to talk college football next. Welcome back to the show. We talked some NFL. Now let's talk some college football on a Monday that can only mean one thing. He's here! The great Bill Bender. Does a great job at the Sporting News on all things college football. Hangs out with us. I don't fake it. There's a lot of people in sports media who will fake it and pretend they watch everything all the time. Saturday was my birthday. Happy birthday to me, 48. This is 48, ladies and gentlemen. This is your future if you are less than 48. Sam, I don't want to see that face. So I didn't watch a ton of college football, but I do know a lot of, obviously, the big storylines. So, Bill Bender, fill us in on what we missed if we weren't watching on Saturday.
Oh, Miami moved up to number 2 after that game was in a slog, a lot of rain, but their defense is dominant. They have it in the trenches. It was a big win for them. Michigan extended Nebraska's misery in a very competitive game. Nebraska's getting closer. They're just not quite there yet player-wise, and Michigan had it up front and ended up pulling away with a couple big plays. And, a hot seat for Luke Fickell. Wisconsin loses to Maryland. I like how he handled it afterward. I mean, this guy can't be easy to be asked, what do you think of the fire Fickell chants in Camp Randall? But between him and Mike Gundy, there's a couple hot seats there.
Nebraska getting closer to being Michigan, something Cornhusker fans have been telling ourselves for in excess of 2 decades at this point. Bill, the big story to me coming out of the weekend is you had Fernando Mendoza go out there and throw for 5 touchdowns, 4 in the first half against Illinois for an Indiana team that absolutely rolls the Illini and Kurt Cignetti's group. I'm curious, Mendoza, we wake up on Monday morning, and he's your new Heisman favorite over John Mateer. What did you see out of this Indiana team this weekend in a huge Big Ten matchup? And does Fernando Mendoza really have a shot to win the Heisman?
And by the way, I'll take a hit real quick. Indiana, I have to give them credit. I thought they'd take a step backwards this year with a much tougher schedule, and they haven't.
We all did.
Okay, and I feel better then. Well, then we were all wrong.
Now the question becomes, how real is this? Because not only has Kurt Cignetti 15-2 at Iowa or Indiana heading into this Iowa game, you mentioned Mendoza. He was efficient. Their running game is dominant. Their defense is good. If they had another uniform on, we would think of them a lot differently. Going to Iowa this weekend, that's the next test. But Cignetti continues to pass them. So they are a real threat. It didn't surprise me how high they jumped in the polls. I was kind of anticipating top 10 around there. And Texas Tech, same. After Texas Tech goes into Utah, backup quarterback comes in, and they dominated the Utes.
All right, let me hit a piece of low-hanging fruit here. What is Arch Manning doing? I mean, really? I mean, you play like dog crap the first, few games of the season, and then you go out there against Sam Houston State, and you're taunting guys when you score. I mean, really? Come on.
Do we know what the Sam Houston guy said? I mean, you never know.
Just say nothing. You have not played good football.
I know. I saw a clip yesterday, Jason, of Johnny Manziel doing something very similar, stepping over a Sam Houston defender after he did one of his many touchdowns. And it's not that different. But, yeah, I mean, it's probably unnecessary. And it just goes to show that we can't go. It's like that the sign, we have gone one day without an accident. We can't go one day without an Arch Manning headline / controversy / something that has nothing to do with actual football. But to your point, maybe hold off on doing that one.
Bill, Ole Miss rolls up on Tulane over the weekend. Obviously, we can get to the scope of the SEC a little bit later, but I'm curious from a Tulane side of this matchup. Obviously, they're one of the teams that we've been talking about for that last spot in the playoffs, along with this just incredible run that USF has gone on. What did this kind of change in terms of your opinions about John Summerall's group down in New Orleans after losing 45-10 to an SEC foe?
Yeah, I thought they would cover and miss that one real quickly, honestly. I think it speaks more to Trinidad Chambliss and what Lane Kiffin might have there. You know, you look at his first 2 games, Ferris State transfer playing brilliant football, and, you know, Austin Simmons has sat out the last 2 weeks and creates a dilemma if Simmons is ready to go going into this LSU game where Ole Miss is favored at home. So I think it's more about them now. Tulane, the American Conference race is only going to get more interesting now that you have, it's like each week we have a new darling. It was South Florida, then it was Tulane. Now it's Memphis, which was able to beat Arkansas. And Memphis plays South Florida at home this year. And I believe Navy at home. So don't forget about Navy. They're in that race too.
Clemson. Yikes. I mean, it goes from bad to worse, losing at home against Syracuse. Bill, you know, give me some thoughts here on where this team goes right now. Dabo Swinney's team obviously having some trouble.
You're out in Vegas, right? So Dabo's on tilt, definitely. I mean, there's no doubt from the press conference to the next loss and those things going on with the Tigers. I still think he's a good coach, but now it opens the door to the NIL stuff and the transfer portal stuff. And is this roster built to compete for national championships? And the worst thing about it isn't even their losses to me. Probably if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm looking at, Miami finally has their act together. Michael Irvin's running around, you know, with the siren and the Ibises, they're back. Florida State's dominating teams. And I know it's Kent State, but if Florida State rolls into Virginia Friday night and hammers them, then the marquee event in the ACC is no longer Clemson. It's now Florida State, Miami.
Could you see Dabo leaving?
You know, we had I took a pause there because we had a meeting at Sporting News. We had our weekly planning meeting, and I was kind of on that. There's no way in the world that's going to happen. I don't care if they go 5-7. But he may talk himself into leaving, if you know what I mean. Like each one of these press conferences, if the struggles continue.
Would he leave to stay in another? But if NIL and all that stuff bothers him, would he leave to stay in college football? I mean, or would he just go do something else?
Well, people say NFL, but I
do too.
Was that last week we talked about this?
I don't know if we talked about it, but it's certainly something that's crossed my mind.
Well, I actually see Kirby. If you had to pick like one of those elite college football coaches doing well in the NFL, I'd take Kirby Smart because I think he understands the defensive side of it so well and would do well. He's always remind me of, like, if the Cowboys hired their next coach, I would hire Kirby Smart.
Marcus Williams?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that's another guy I think of.
Yeah, the guys that could do well there. I think Kirby would do well. Dabo, I don't know. The Alabama question always exists, but like you said, if he's not into NIL and the transfer portal, you can't go to Alabama. They expect to win a national title every year.
No, and like I said, if the NIL thing is what's bothering them, just go coach in the NFL. It's at least a more organized NIL. We're coming back with more. Bill Bender, college football, does a great job at the Sporting News, hanging out with us on a Monday edition of SportsWrap. All right, we continue the college football talk, and we continue it with Bill Bender of the Sporting News, who's so kind enough to hang out with us on Mondays on the show to recap everything we missed over the weekend, which for me was virtually everything because it was my birthday. It was a birthday weekend. Sam Yarnell, a question for Bill Bender. Go ahead.
Bill, it was a great weekend of college football, great matchups in the SEC, and the one that nobody was watching except for me was South Carolina, Missouri. Lenora Sellers and Bo Prabula going head-to-head, and Missouri comes out with a win. I'm just curious to get your perspective because I had a couple of head-scratching questions watching this game. Preseason, there was so much talk about Lenora Sellers. This is a guy who's a dark horse for Heisman. This is a South Carolina team that's got all their ducks in a row. They've got it all together. Now they're 2-2, and they lost to Missouri in the SEC. What has happened with this South Carolina team this year?
The SEC middle class is tough. It does feel like the AFC. You know, if we're being honest, like this is a larger version of the AFC West in some ways. Every game's going to be tough. And, you know, Missouri's a good football team at home. Bo Prabula's definitely playing well. They could have scratched out a cover if they don't maybe if they don't get tripped up on a reverse late in that game. But Lenora Sellers got banged up last week, and, you know, he was solid against Missouri. But this is a team that's probably, if we're being real, that we expected them to be 10-2, probably me too. But we're looking at 8-4. And, you know, this is Auburn right now after Jackson Arnold took 10 sacks. It's not. Missouri is building toward a really big game against Alabama here shortly. And I think the Tigers might have continues to win. And I saw a tweet this morning, Sam. Missouri and Nebraska, just look at how their lives have changed since moving to these conferences. It's night and day.
Oh, that's interesting. You mentioned the Bo side of all of this, and just keeping my ear to the ground with the whole Penn State community, right? Lots of Penn State fans in the neck of the woods where I'm at. It seems like there was a notion for a period of time of, oh, Drew Aller is starting to show struggles, and, you know, he's going to be as good as gone after this year with the draft coming around and him running out of eligibility. We, Penn State, would have been better off letting Aller go to the draft last year and keeping Bo Prabula. What do you think about all that? Do you think they made a mistake in letting Bo transfer to the SEC?
I don't, and I'm sure you're hearing Trace McSorley comparisons along the way. But
Yep.
I mean, Drew Aller has done nothing wrong yet this year. They're 3-0. They've played a really weak non-conference schedule. I saw the QBR thing making the rounds, and, you know, some of that's nonsense to me because they haven't been threatened. That said, this weekend's huge. You know, going up against Dante Moore, who's emerged as a Heisman Trophy candidate in the first month of the season. I had a hard time picking a winner for this Oregon-Penn State game because I could see a path for both. And to me, this is a program statement for Penn State, the whiteout, the pageantry. It's an awesome setting, as you know. And but they do have to go out and win this game. And if they don't, those Bo Prabula, Drew Aller narrative that we're going through is going to get much louder.
Look, I almost feel like it's deja vu in year one of Bill Belichick and year one of what we saw with Deion Sanders, where, you know, there's all the hype and there's all the buildup, but the reality versus what is happening on the field are two completely different things. I mean, they beat Richmond and Charlotte? Those are the two wins so far for North Carolina. They got their doors blown off by TCU. They lose to UCF 34-9. You've got this whole scene on the sideline, and I think everybody's making too much of a big deal of it with him and Jordan Hudson in the pregame, with her being down on the field and giving him a little encouragement, I guess, before that game starts. I mean, 4 games in here to the whole Bill Belichick experience. I know players are going to win games, and it just seems clear at this point and obvious that they don't have the players yet. But with a guy as old as Belichick, you know, is the expectation that they're going to be able to ramp this thing up fast enough that it's worth having him and holding on to him and everything that comes with him, Bill?
Well, I was one of those people that saw a path for them to be 3-1 after the first month of the season. And it's just not. Now they're playing Dabo and Clemson next. And we're going to circle that game for all the wrong reasons instead of the right ones. So the sideline interactions with Jordan Hudson honestly go right over my head, because, I mean, are we going to do that for every coach if their wife is on the sideline before a game? Yeah. I don't think we do. So, but I also don't know how many are on the sideline before the game, you know? So that doesn't bother me. But to your point, I mean, how long? This is not a overnight fix and wave a wand type deal. So the question becomes, how long is he going to stick around? You look at the back half of their schedule, there's opportunities for growth, but it's also at this point, after the way that UCF beat them and Scott Frost kind of calling it out afterwards, saying we're UCF and all that, North Carolina's path to a bowl game isn't very easy.
Oh, God. I'd be surprised. A path to a bowl game, I mean, unless they're buying tickets, I don't know how that's happening right now, Bill.
Well, the opposite of Deion, too, because Deion at least got off to a hot start. And we were all writing hot takes about how this was going to revolutionize football. And now, 2 1/3 years later, Colorado has BYU coming into their house this weekend. That's a good BYU team. They did go back to Kaiden Salter. But I think, I got to say it, after that opener, Colorado's kind of been, other than the quarterback shuffle, been out of sight, out of mind. By
the way, they got BYU, and then they get TCU. And trust me, TCU has some comeuppance for them, given what happened a couple of years ago in that first game for Deion in Colorado.
Keep an eye on TCU Friday night. That's one of the more – there's so many good games this weekend. But TCU, Arizona State, Friday night, Fox. The Horned Frogs kind of got that look again, Sonny Dykes. I like what they got on defense. I like Josh Hoover, really experienced quarterback. Their running game steady. They go in there and win.
Bill Bender does a great job on college football with the Sporting News. I appreciate you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks, guys. Take care.
We wrap it up with odds and ends and a tribute to Dave Sharapan coming up about 10 minutes from now. But if it is a Monday on SportsWrap, means we are recapping what took place in NASCAR. We do a wraparound segment, Fridays with Tino Patino, talking about the race before it happens. Then we talk about what happened in the race with this guy, Brian Twining, who joins us from Bleacher Nation, does a great job on NASCAR, does a great job with everything over there, and hangs out with us on the program. So Ryan Blaney, Brian Twining, picks up his third win of the season. I'm sorry, after the race last week, in Bristol, this thing was a snooze fest for me compared to what we had last week. But I get it. We can't expect bangers every time. But Ryan Blaney picks up a big third win. He passes Josh Berry with about 40 laps to go. But Ryan Blaney led for most of this race, didn't he?
Yeah, he was probably the best car on the track. You could tell, outside of restarts where he lost spots on every single one. Beyond him, when he restarted out front, he was the best car since they unloaded on the weekend. And Penske in general, including Josh Berry with Wood Brothers, was the class of the field. And I think it just put the whole Cup Series back on notice that if any of these guys get to Phoenix, they are the championship favorite.
But what does it say? Yeah, I heard them talking about this in the last, 20 laps of the race. That, the Penske guys, that maybe Josh Berry wasn't going to push as hard on Ryan Blaney, coming down the stretch of this thing. Is there anything that you saw in the way this sort of played out over the final 20 laps that told you Josh Berry, because he's a non-playoff driver, or wasn't in the playoffs at this point, was sort of taking it easy and giving Ryan Blaney that clearer path to a victory?
So I definitely think Josh was still racing hard, trying to pass Ryan, but he didn't go the extra mile to do so in the sense of putting the bumper to Mr. Blaney in order to make the pass, which I do think you see him do had he not been eliminated at Bristol in the last round, or if this was a regular season race and they were racing for a win, I do think you see the 21 put the bumper to the 12 to attempt to make the pass. So yeah, with Blaney being in the playoffs and Berry not, I think he did kind of take it easy in that sense.
What stood out to you? What else stood out to you from this race?
I think again the lack of speed from the 5 camp. I don't want to say it's worrisome, as we had the Kansas, another playground of Kyle Larson's, but it is troublesome that they haven't found the speed that they had early in this season. And HMS in general, they had a much better race than I kind of anticipated, with William Byron and Chase Elliott making his way from the back of the field to the front again. But yeah, it is worrisome that they don't have the speed that Penske does right now as we look forward to the championship.
Talk about some guys that if the cut had taken place after yesterday would be below the line. Ross Chastain, 12 behind the cut line. Chase Briscoe is the cut right now at plus 12. Austin Cindric minus 19. Tyler Reddick minus 23. And a bad race for Bubba Wallace yesterday in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think worst case scenario happened for 23-11. I mean, when you look at Bubba in particular, I kind of hit on this last week. This was a track that he had performed well at in the past, and Toyotas in general kind of missed it outside of Christopher Bell, who, being the favorite, you kind of expected him to run well, but even he was a little bit off from what we have seen in the past. So yeah, I think Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, 23-11 camp, they're going to have to refine their Kansas aura from 2023 if they have any hopes of advancing here into the round of 8.
How about Joey Logano?
It's playoffs, man. You can never count Joey out when the going gets tough. I just think this guy is the ultimate competitor right there.
Him and Chase Elliott were kind of neck and neck all day yesterday too.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I've been down on Elliott all season. He's just kind of there. He hasn't had a race-winning car beyond Atlanta, I don't think, once this season. So he's getting good results, but until they can put it together on a traditional track, I don't consider him a true championship contender.
When you look ahead to Kansas and the race ahead, Bubba Wallace has won at this track.
Yep.
Give me a sense for sort of what you expect out of Kansas.
Obviously, Hendrick should be really strong here, Elliott being the outlier. And one guy that currently below the cut line who is on my dartboard for betting outrights this week is Ross Chastain. Based on what we saw him do at Charlotte, where he came back from a dead last start in order to win the race with the best car, and the fact that he's qualifying well finally on the season, I do think Chastain has to be somebody to watch out for this week.
How much pressure is it on these guys that are below the cut line, especially when you get to Wallace at 12th, that you feel like you're playing from behind and not pressing too hard?
I think this is the most pressure they're going to feel all season, considering we have the Roval coming up next week, who the vast majority of these guys are not considered road course ringers. And so they cannot be putting all their eggs in that basket heading to that track.
Very interesting. William Byron. We haven't talked about him, but another guy. He's just there and he's second right now in the playoff standings.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that team has just been so solid all season, but kind of like Chase Elliott. I mean, are they going to win at a regular track? I just don't know if he's able to win from starting not up front or at a traditional type of racetrack. So, yeah, he's good, but until we see them be able to drive through the field like a Ryan Blaney, like a Chastain did at Charlotte,
is it just not having the car? Because and it's just they're basically just relying on his ability right now?
I don't know what it is. HMS has been kind of off for about half the season. We normally look at that team as the team in the sport, but
I'd love to be so off and still be in second place in the playoff standings. Yeah. I'm just saying. Love to be so off and still be in second place. Brian Twining does a great job on NASCAR. Check him out over at Bleacher Nation. Thank you, my friend. Have a great week.
Thanks, Jason. Take it easy.
We'll wrap it up with odds and ends next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Tomorrow on the show, more NFL to recap. We ignored baseball today, so we'll have plenty of baseball to get into as well. Before we go, a couple of reminders. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Odyssey, you name it, TuneIn. We're on all of them. So make sure to subscribe and never miss a minute of the show. You can listen to it in its audio form Monday through Friday, available most times early in the afternoon while you're in the shower, while you're on the treadmill at the gym, planes, trains, automobiles, you name it. It's good for all of that. Also, if you want to watch the show, and clips from the show, you can do that over on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to that. Sports Wrap shorts are there, sometimes clips from the show, sometimes clips not from the show as well. By the way, Sam, how did you do in Page? I went 3-1 in Page versus the Prince. How did you do?
Me too. I also went 3-1.
Right. I wasn't keeping tabs on yours. I was too busy celebrating the fact that I'm either going 1-3 or 3-1 here in the first 3 weeks of the season. So that's sort of where we are. All right, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. A lot of people, if you were on X yesterday, if you're a sports fan, you were on X, you might have seen a lot of people paying tribute to a man named Dave Sharapan, who passed away at the far too young age of 55 yesterday after a battle with cancer. He was the host of a show called The Bostonian versus the Book. He was known as the Sports Consigliere. He was Sportsbook Consigliere. He was huge in the sports betting world. If you lived in Pittsburgh and you're watching us on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, you undoubtedly know who Dave Sharapan is. If you are somebody that is in Las Vegas watching us on Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network, you undoubtedly know who Dave Sharapan is and was. Sam Yarnell, who works with us, also works at Sports Grid, also knew Dave Sharapan through his work there on that channel. So I wanted to give you some time, Sam, to sort of tell people about Dave Sharapan, because if you didn't know who Dave Sharapan was, you're going to wish you did.
And if you did know who Dave Sharapan was, he was your best friend. Yeah, it was a tough day on Sunday for a lot of us. Wow, I'm going to cry doing this. Dave was a really, 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 really special person. He loved everybody unconditionally, whether you had just met him or whether you had known him for a decade. I can't begin to put into words what that man did for so many people around Las Vegas, around Pittsburgh, around so many cities in the Caribbean where he worked for so long doing books offshore. The man lived 1,000 lives, and I said this on Twitter. I'm just very lucky that mine was one of the many, 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 many that he touched. Yeah, he's gone from this earth way too soon, taken from us to a disease that, you know, so many people suffer from every single year in this country. It's really tough. The world was a better place with him in it, and it's a worse place without. It's going to be hard going to work in the sports betting industry every day, thinking about how lines move and not being able to consult Dave on, you know, what does this injury mean? Or, you know, which angle are the sharps coming in at this week, Dave? Or how are the books going to move to combat X, Y, and Z? He knew everything. He knew everyone. You know, like I said, he was everybody's best friend. And we'll all miss him. We really will.
I got to know Dave only briefly. About 6 months ago, I had a call with Matt Perrault, who was his on-air partner in the Bostonian versus the Book. And I had known Matt a little bit through the industry. And I had a call with them to talk about, you know, potential collaborations. We're always talking to people about different ways to collaborate. And Dave was part of that call. And it was the first time I had met him. And I walked away from that going, man, this is a cool guy. I came away really impressed with him. I only knew him, you know, through his work and what he had done. But it's very rare in this industry that there is widespread outpouring of emotion and support when somebody passes away without a single bad thing. It wasn't, well, sorry to hear somebody passed away, but ... And we live in a world where everybody, even in those moments, could find something to say. You could not find anybody yesterday, universally, with a bad thing to say. The outpouring of support for Dave Sharapan and his family, and those that knew him and were close to him, it was amazing, Sam. It really struck me because, you know, we live in a day and age of a lot of cynicism and a lot of skepticism. But from everything I gathered and what I heard, Dave Sharapan was exactly the person that you saw him on camera, and if you met him in person, it was exactly the same person.
It was the same thing tenfold more in person. I mean, truly, just a light of a human being. And, you know, you said it best, Jason. in the current juncture where we all live, right? In the spaces where we all spend our time, if you're watching this show, right? We come across a lot of not great people. And it's pretty rare to come across somebody who just, you can't find a bad word to be said about them. And Dave Sharapan was that person.
Universally beloved. Rest in peace, Dave Sharapan. It's going to do it for us on this Monday edition of the show. Thank you to Bill Bender for hanging out with us, Brian Twining as well, talking NASCAR. Thanks to you, Sam, and for your words on Dave Sharapan as well. We're back with you on Tuesday for another edition of Sports Wrap. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you then.